back to another exciting broadcast. Last night was so amazing, talking about how to build yourself after a breakup. And so now today we're going to be talking about how to build authentic, time-tested relationships. And so I have one of my besties on of 28 years. Did you know we've been friends for 28 years?
That's a long time. Telling my age.
Miss Shantae Dalton. And to give a little history of us, we met in college. I was attending Florida State University. She was attending Florida A&M University, Rattlers, and
yeah.
So the wonderful thing about FAMU is that they allowed everyone, TCC students who at Tallahassee Community College, Florida State University students to be a part of their gospel choir. So that's how we met, and we have been friends ever since. We have lived together. We have been in church together. We have been on different teams together. So I just thought that Shantae is the perfect person to talk about being authentic and going through a time-tested relationship, because working together as friends, it can be a struggle, can be conflict. We have definitely been in positions where, like, I was in charge of a team and she was under me. She was in charge of a team, I was under her. So, balancing those dynamics. Also, even just, I'm older, she's younger. So even, working through those dynamics with each other, all those kinds of things start to factor in when you're talking about friendship. And so if you want to be a great friend, then you have to be a great friend. So that's what we wanted to talk about today. So Shantae, you want to introduce yourself, tell a little bit about yourself, and then we're just going to go ahead and start shooting out these questions.
Yes, ma'am. All right, so the first question was, what makes a friendship authentic? And thank you for giving some background and some history on how we have just come through just a lot of history that's there, a lot of time-tested experiences that we've had. One thing I think that makes a friendship authentic is just being able to be yourself and being able to just be who you are. And so it's like you're in this zone where people are able to just accept you for you. And I think honesty is another big piece, the ability to be honest, and just really having pure motives in the relationship. If it's genuine, if your motives are to love, to care for, those are things that make it, I would say, an authentic friendship. Sometimes what happens in the part about like being yourself, I think with time-tested friendships and friendships that you've had for a long time, I think one thing that comes into play is that sometimes you're still in a stage where you're finding yourself. You're still figuring out who you are. You're still figuring out. You're trying to navigate yourself in the world, and then you're trying to relate to others within that. So then that becomes really becomes sometimes a source of conflict at times, because you're trying to balance all of those things. And when you think about a friendship, let's just say such as ours, I met you when I was 16. So I'm years old now. And so you're talking about me at 16, going to college, and then our post-college life, and, getting into career, getting into ministry, finding ourselves in our 20s and our 30s and our, I guess, 40s now. And so there's all of these different stages. So just that whole identity piece of, because I'm a very different person now at my base level, and my essence may still be the same, but the bright-eyed, bushy-tailed 16-year-old is very different from maybe who I am now. So a lot of phases have been gone through.
Yeah, that's really good. I love that you say that, and talking about, just our identity. And also, that was something that I was thinking about, is just that ability to grow together, and, sometimes, like you said, it does cause that conflict, because when I think about, as you were talking, I think about like with earthquakes, what's happening is those plates are kind of moving against each other. And so there has to be a rhythm and a flow. And I think too, something that's really key is just that understanding and that compassion. You know, being compassionate with one another as we grow through situations, and being understanding, you know, knowing that, okay, guess what? She doesn't like this, or she doesn't react like that, or she don't respond to that no more, or, you know, and being, and also being able to look at yourself and be able to grow through those things as well. You know, because I know, you know, just talking about, you know, I completely forgot that you were 16 when we met, but, you know, just thinking about that, because when we first came into our relationship, it was more like a big sister, you know, kind of relationship. So as time went on, you know, and you were like, no, I'm grown. And I'm like, oh, you not, you still little sister to me.
Doesn't help that I'm short too, you know.
That's true too.
One time for the 5 feet people.
One time, give it up. And so, you know, just growing through that as well, you know, that was something that I had to make a lot of adjustments to, you know, because yeah, you know, my personality is very strong anyway. So, I was bossy, you know, so, you know, so I was used to being very bossy with you. And you know, at one point you were just like, dude, you know, we leveled out now, so you need to stop it.
Right.
You know, and I was like, oh, really? Oh, like that. But you know, I had to, you know, and I was so glad that, you know, in some situations you weren't able to express that. In some situations, you know, you were able to grow into saying to me, hey, I don't like that. You can't treat me like that. You can't say that. And then I had to take a step back and say, whoa, you know, I've got to let her be there, you know, or I've got to let her grow through that and be okay with that and not take offense. And I think that sometimes in friendships, that's what can cause a friendship to break. You know, when that friend is growing through situations, and you know, the other friend is like, whoa, what's happening? And instead of embracing and having that compassion and that understanding, kind of taking a more of an attitude of, well, okay, well, if you won't be like that, then go on back.
Right.
You know, and instead of, you know, plowing through, you know, the situation, just giving up. And something else that you said that was so key to me as well is this, you know, the value of the relationship. Mm-hmm. You know, if you love this person and this, you know, you have decided, yes, I want to enter into a relationship with this person, then you've got to decide, okay, I'm going to push through. Like I've heard of friendships that have ended after 10 years, after 15 years. And, you know, a friend of mine was just telling me about two friends at her job, and how they, you know, just stopped being friends. And it's like, but you know, that means that something was brewing
right
all along, right? And it was never brought to the surface. And so, like you said, that even that ability to express and be able to have conversations and dialogues, be honest, you know, and on both ends, you know, one person who might be trying to express their feelings, and the person who's receiving those feelings, to be able to say, okay, where are the places I need to grow? And also, you know, I love this person enough too, you know, so even, you know, when you're having those honest relationships, not looking at it as an attack on your person. No, this is just something that you may have, this has been something that has been going on for a while, and it may have been okay at one point, but now it's not. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. And like you said, something key, being able to talk about those things and discuss. Of course, communication really breaks down a lot of relationships.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can become difficult at times if you're not a person that's used to expressing your needs. It becomes very difficult to express what your needs are at that time. And to say, you know, even if you're going through a phase, that, you know, listen, this is where I am right now, and these are some things that I like, things that I don't like, things that I know maybe our relationship was in this particular place, but this is where I am now. And being able to allow a person, that time, or that the ability to grow. And sometimes it's hard to let go of the dynamics that are initially set in a relationship, because those things are strong. Because if sometimes you have friendships, but you have a mother-daughter dynamic. Sometimes you have a big sister, little sister. Sometimes you have the rescuer, and so sometimes you have all of these different dynamics that come into place. And when those things start to shift, and sometimes they start to divinely shift just so that we can be whole all together. But sometimes we don't always, as we're experiencing these shifts, we don't always know exactly what's happening. So sometimes it's difficult to communicate. It may sound easy just to say, oh, well, just tell the person what you need. But sometimes you don't know what's happening. So it's like, I know that for some reason this is irritating me now. I know it's been that way for the last 10 years, and this is always the way it's always been. But somehow now something about the way we relate to one another is not it's not working for me anymore, or it's irritating me, or it's causing conflict. And sometimes we don't understand what's happening. Maybe we just become distant or cold or shut down, or start, maybe we snap. Maybe we start to interact in a way that's not very fruitful. So, but sometimes just if you have a friendship where you can talk it through, as opposed to just let me just shut down and stop talking to you, then you mentioned just the investment in that friendship to say, okay, well, this is going to take some work. And the realization that relationships take work. I think I've been through a lot with just different friendships throughout my life, just from childhood on. And sometimes those relationships, sometimes they just come to a point where they really just start to shift, and you just have to really start to just really analyze what's happening and what's going on. And being able to connect with that. But I've realized that it takes work. Just with the friendships I've had throughout my life, it seems that when I was younger, like let's just say maybe from the age 6 on up, it seems as though, friendships were easy. You went to school, you saw your friends, you hung out, maybe, no big deal. But it's like, as you get older, as you change, you're like, okay, this takes work. This takes, this takes effort, and not in a way that should be, draining it, or just, taking so much out of you. Not really talking about necessarily a toxic type of relationship, but even those types of relationships, if you're working through those processes, it takes time, and it does take work, and it takes effort. And sometimes when it comes to the part where we have to make a decision that, okay, I'm going to put the effort in because this friendship is worth it, then that's when we have to say, okay, I'm in this, and I am going to push through, and and just to see how things will turn out.
That's good. That's good. So if you are listening right now and you have a bestie, a best friend, I want you to go ahead and share this with her. Or if it's one of the guys, share it with him, because we have a special prize, because this is my Sister's Keeper anniversary week. So we have a special prize for 2 best friends. So get in the comments and say your name and your bestie's name, and your bestie has to do the same to tag you, and we're going to pick one bestie relationship to give a special prize to. So make sure that you hit that share, tag your friend, and hit it in the comments. At the end of this broadcast, I will let you know what you need to comment in order, so that way we make sure that you're on all the way to the end, and your bestie too, and you are going to get a special prize. So going back to what you were saying, Shantae, I just wanted to throw that out there. One thing that I love that you said as well is when you talked about, shutting down and just withdrawing, and really putting in the effort to just talk it through. I think one thing that has been that has really helped you and I in our relationship is, just coming out with, hey, what's wrong with you? You know, just that simple, just that simple. Yeah, and it's just that simple. Instead of just allowing that person to fade away, if that, like you said, you want to put in that effort and that person's that important to you and you love that person, just to come out and say, hey, something's wrong. You know what I mean? Like, hey, what's going on with our vibe? Or, are you all right? And then it's, of course, at that point, it's ownership on that person to say, listen, I'm processing, or, something's, I don't know what's wrong, but something's wrong. Thanks for reaching out. We'll talk about it. But just even giving that, ability, to giving that permission, that's a better word.
Right.
Yourself permission to say, listen, something is bothering me, but I may not know what it is right now, but I'm gonna get back to you. You know what I mean? So that person is not, it's just not, oh, everything's okay, but like, come on. Oh.
You do. You absolutely do.
Because there's like an ebb and flow to friendships, and especially when you've been together for years, you can just pick that. You ain't gotta have no sixth sense. You ain't gotta have no prophetic. You ain't have none of that. You just know, hey, something is off, And so I think that, and I think that it's important too, that you understand that person's personality, because, I'm a lot more expressive. You're a lot less expressive. So it has worked for me to just be like, hey, what's going on? And you'll just be like, listen, I can't talk about it right now, or listen, I'm processing, or I don't know what it is, or, but at least, in the fact that you would even be honest enough to say, yeah, something is wrong. I just don't know what. Which is powerful. And to me, that's one of the things that makes our relationship authentic. And it has the time test on it, because we have been able to do that, but understanding that person's personality is really, really important too, that you're just not, oh, well, she's just going through her thing, I'm just going to leave her. And then that person just kind of fade off, because I think even those of us who do, don't necessarily express right away, we still feel some kind of way, and tell me if I'm wrong, you feel some kind of way if the person don't even bother to check.
True.
Don't even bother to say, hey, you all right? And they just be like, gone with the wind. Right.
And sometimes we make assumptions about what's wrong with the person. And then like it takes me a long time to process my thoughts, my feelings. Then I'm in my head saying, I feel this way. Should I feel this way? And just going, that's probably not right that I'm feeling this way. So sometimes if you would ask what's wrong, I know what's wrong, but it's like, it's too shameful to say, because I probably shouldn't feel that way. But that's another part of what you've been talking about, is just owning that feeling. Yeah. So sometimes when you may come and say, well, what's wrong? I'm not ready to talk about it, or I haven't processed it. So sometimes I'm like, wait, it feels confrontational. Like, I'm not ready to talk. Come off me. So, but learning to say, maybe not right now. But sometimes we just see a person a little off, and we just assume you're upset with me. You're mad, and then we shut down as well. And then now you have this silent fight that nobody knows. Sometimes people talk a week or two later, and it's started, but you don't know what. You don't even know what it was. And so I think the older we've gotten, just having more maturity when it comes to just having more maturity, just to not make assumptions, to speak up a lot more, and when we need that space, to allow each other to have that space. So that's good. That's good. So, we've kind of already gone into number 2, is what are some challenges that friends, face that can make or break. And that is definitely something, assumptions. Something else that I've experienced, or, I've seen other friendships go through, is when there is envy or jealousy. Right. And we're not able to express that, or we're not able to own that, that you are jealous because, your bestie got this and you didn't.
or, you know, she's with, you know, she got the man and you didn't get the man, or, you know, there's a lot of things, you know, and that breaks friendships as well. And so it's very important for you to evaluate what you are feeling. And like you said, to honor and own it. You know, envy, jealousy, those are all human emotions. They are natural. Sometimes it happens. But if you don't own it, then what it starts to do is it kind of like seeps into the foundations of the friendship. Or, you know, sometimes it's already built into the friendship, you know, where maybe you feel intimidated, you know, maybe, you know, I've seen where one friend loses weight and the other one doesn't. And, you know, now there's this hidden resentment. There's this, you know, because she did it and I didn't, you know, and so being able to own that, there is no shame in feeling envious, in feeling jealous, in feeling that resentment, but it's how you respond and how you begin to interact with your friend after you have owned that situation. And sometimes, honestly, the best thing to do, and I know some people are gonna be like, oh no, because it's just too shameful. But sometimes it might just be like, listen, girl, you know, I was upset that you lost the weight and I didn't, you know, so it just, you know, it just hurt, it hurt me, you know, I was mad, you know, because you're looking all good and I'm not, you know, and that'll give your friend the opportunity to either encourage you or, you know, because maybe they said something, you know, because now that they've lost the weight and they looking at you and they like trying to encourage you, but all you taking it as is she picking on me and she
you take it the wrong way,
you know, and she, you know, pointing out my flaw, you know, just because when she's really trying to be helpful, she's not trying to, you know, get you, you know what I mean? So, you know, really owning that. I love that you said that, just owning that this is how I am feeling and it is okay that I'm feeling like this, but now how do I respond? And you might have to tell your friend, you know, you might have to say, listen, when you try to get me to eat right, it make me feel bad. You know, so that way the person knows, oh, then I'm not going to do that. And on the other end, you can't be upset when that person says, I don't want you to do that. Don't encourage me to eat right. Don't get upset. You love that person. And you keep it moving, you know, but again, like you said, maturity, you know, we have to mature in that. And so that we can come into that place where the friendship isn't broken over those kind of hidden emotions.
Hidden things. And sometimes we have, just as you mentioned, there are deep-rooted insecurities that we have that often have nothing to do with our friend. There are things that are rooted in us, but being around other people magnifies those things that may be within us, those inadequacies that we may feel. And sometimes, but we need to, once we can process through that and own it, then it gives us a chance to realize like what's inside of us. It gives us a chance to realize, you know, I have these tendencies. This is an area where I'm sensitive. This is and that, so that doesn't mean that if let's just, I know you just threw out the example of like, let's just say weight. That doesn't mean that everybody in the world should put off their weight loss plan because I feel some kind of way. I may need to just own that, okay, you know, everybody's going to be on this fitness journey, and either I'm choosing to participate or I'm not, or I'm going to encourage others, but at least now I know that may be an area of sensitivity. And just so insecurity can be something that fosters that jealousy, that fosters just that comparisons and things of that nature. We've talked about communication. You know, sometimes the communication in the way that we speak to each other, the manner in which we communicate, the mode in which we communicate. We have to be very sensitive and mindful of those things when we're interacting with our friends, because we can grate one another and provoke each other. And sometimes we know our friend doesn't like certain things, or for us to say certain things, and we do it anyway. Or we shouldn't do those things, but just being more mindful of how we're coming across. And then, you know, we talked about just being able to express what your communication needs are once you realize what those things are. Sometimes, of course, there are phases of growth that we go through that if you've had a friendship that's lasted a long period of time, you're going to see that person through different phases of life.
Right.
And just it's different, just us people trying to navigate their life is different from when we're college girls partying, or we're just hanging out, till 3 o'clock in the morning. But now maybe I have a family now. Maybe,
Yeah.
okay, my time, my boundaries and things, my priorities, my interests may be different. I think respect is a big challenge at times, and being able to set
Wow.
boundaries.
That's
Because sometimes
good.
we have to realize that we don't respect people as much as we should.
Yeah.
Or you realize, you know what, I respect everybody over here, but the people that are closest to me, sometimes I'm not respecting them or as much as I should, or I'm taking them, taking the people closest to me for granted. And sometimes just being able to establish those boundaries, that we have with friends, to be able to respect those things. Pride is a big one.
Woo.
We just let pride just get in the way of having
Yes.
conversations, of apologizing, of forgiving.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Just also just sometimes our expectations of our friends
Hmm.
causes conflict, because sometimes we have unrealistic expectations of people in our lives.
That's
Sometimes
true.
there are needs that we have
That's
that only
true.
God Himself can fulfill. And
That's
sometimes
true.
we're putting our whole emotional life, in this person, in the palm of this person's hands, to make us feel whole, to make us feel validated, to make us feel loved. And there are some things that a person cannot necessarily fulfill for you. They may try, they're going to give it their best shot, but people are human. We're all fallible. So sometimes we have to realize when we have unrealistic expectations, when we're like, okay, this person's supposed to do all these things for me emotionally, and this support, and maybe the capacity may not be there.
That's
The
true.
capacity may not be there for anybody. We may just have this
That's
tall order
true.
that we're expecting people to live up to in our lives, and sometimes it's not realistic. And I think
Good.
the great place in friendship is when you get to a point where I'm going to just use the word freedom, where you are free. Like, it's like there's love, there's accountability, there's covenant, but it's like you're free to be who you are. You're
Yeah.
free to allow me, to love people the way that you need to, but it's not bondage.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we've seen just through the years where friendships can cross that line of being really just of not being a connection that's healthy for either
Yeah. That's
person,
true.
or what we may call, just like bondage to another person, because
Yeah.
sometimes in our dysfunction, we're um we're just keeping that we're keeping sometimes certain dysfunctions alive in our lives, and
Hmm.
taking people along with us, because we have a lot of maybe deficits or a lot of needs, and we take everybody along for the ride to fulfill these needs, and then we start this, sometimes these dysfunctional connections. And
Yeah.
sometimes even when there are things that break friends apart, if you're able to come back together, if you're able to reconcile, it's a great chance to come back together without the dysfunction, or
Yeah.
come together without a lot of the things that help to break the relationship up in the first place. But
Yeah.
most of those things, while it has a lot to do with the other person, it has a lot to do with us as well. So we have to do our own, we have to do work, we have to do our own work. Sometimes we're
Self-inventory.
trying to work on the other person. Hey, treat me this way, treat me that
Yeah. Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do this, don't, let me give you a checklist of your do's and don'ts. Do this, don't do this. This is how you treat me. But sometimes we haven't done our own personal work of just
Self-inventory.
our own healing.
Yeah, that is so good. Yeah, we have to do our own self-inventory. That is so good. And I love what you said about expectations, because, sometimes that can break a relationship too, is false obligation.
Right.
Where it's like, well, I expected you to be, at my daughter's birthday party, and you don't show up. And so now the friendship is broken because you weren't, because there was that expectation.
Right.
And even though the person's like, listen, I have to work, or I had to do this, or I had to do something else. And it's like, okay, well, now we done because you ain't show up, or I ain't show up for 3 years to your daughter's birthday party. And it's like, you don't care about my daughter's birthday party, you don't care about me. And it's just broken because there's this level and not allowing that person freedom. That person may, like you said, that person may they may love your child, but maybe they had something else that they were obligated to. And,
maybe they were tired.
Maybe they're tired. Maybe they
They're
didn't want to go to the
tired. I'm
child's
just
party.
like,
You know what I mean? Yeah. And being okay with, you know, like you said, this having that freedom to say, listen, I'm really tired. I'm not gonna make it. Give her my love. And being okay. And on the other end, being, oh, next time, or shoot, me, I'd be like, well, don't forget to send the gift. Love you.
right. Exactly.
But even they should be obligated to give a gift. But I that was so key what you said. Is just allowing that the other person, allowing your friend to have that freedom, that even if they can't say no, because I know for me that was a hard one. And honey, you easy to say no, I ain't doing that. And I'll be like, what you mean? No, you ain't. No. But that's my personality. Mm-hmm. Like I was not good at saying no to people. So because I have a very giving, and not saying that you don't have a giving personality, but because of my personality of just being like always on the move, always giving something, always doing something, and not saying no to people, but you having no issue with that. So for me, it was like, I would do it for her. So why won't she do it for me?
Right.
And that's been that has been some conflict that we've had experienced over the years, and me not giving you that freedom to be like, no, Key, I'm tired.
Right.
You're tired. You should get out your bed. You should bring your bed with you.
And be there. But you said I like what you said in the sense that, but when you have relationships where, as tired as I am, as busy as I am, now sometimes, of course, we're going to sacrifice at times. Now, you can't be tired every year for the party. Like, that's a problem. That means you're just not trying. But if there are times when it's like, okay, I can't make it, this is what I can do, and this is what I can't. When you start to feel like, oh my God, if I say no, it's going to be a big problem. Let me just get up out of my bed and drag myself here. I'm going to be resentful the whole night and agitated. But because I know they're going to be upset, let me do it. And that's my motivation. That's a problem. Yeah. Now, if it's, let me get out of my bed. I love my friend. I love their family. They sacrifice for me. Let me get up and do it. That's a different heart posture than, oh, let me just go so I don't have to hear her mouth. Let me just go so we won't get into a problem. Then now I'm doing it. Then that's false obligation. That's not being able. That's feeling like, okay, if I needed to say no, I can't. And then then resentment starts to build over time, because it's like, because you start feeling like you're doing not only the party or whatever it was. Now I've done 5 years worth of things that I just didn't want to do. Maybe I only wanted to do 60% of them, but I did 100% of them, because instead of taking my 60, that would have been like freely given and would have been glad to be there, glad to share their time. I'm giving you maybe 100%, and 40% of the time I'm like, I'm not really invested. I really don't want to be there. I'm agitated. So it's like, but then the person starts to feel like, well, do I have the freedom to be honest? Yeah. Can I say, maybe sometimes when there are limitations and I can't do something, or maybe there's this need I can't fulfill. So there's always going to be sacrifice. Like sometimes we're always going to do things that we don't want to do per se, but it shouldn't be that 9 times out of 10 you don't want to, and then you're just doing things, going through the motions just because you can't. That's you can't take the heat that's going to come as a consequence of you not complying, or you not doing it. So
that's good. And I love what you said, that was a key word stuck out to me, was limitation, because now the relationship is limited.
Right.
That's good. So do you think that friendships can be rebuilt?
Absolutely. I absolutely do. I can just name about 4 or 5 friendships off the top of my head that have had to be rebuilt. So I thought about that today, and I said, man, that's a lot of rebuild. Like what's going on with me? I've had to rebuild so many friendships. But I started early. I started having friends really early in my life. Like literally from the time I was like 3 or 4, I always had my besties around me. And a lot of friendships through the years have had to be rebuilt. some because of incidents that happen, some just through growing apart, a lot through misunderstanding. But I have seen friendships in my life be rebuilt and be very successful. But it really takes forgiveness is a big part of it. Being able to release the past, being able to genuinely discuss and communicate about the issues, and being able to, I think, allow time for things to heal. So, sometimes healing in relationships take a while. It may not all happen over one conversation. It may not all happen at one time. You may have to rebuild a relationship in phases so that trust can be rebuilt. But the great thing about it is that it allows you to regroup. It allows you to start on a new foundation. It allows you to just to regain ground. And I'm just a believer that things that it's worth fighting for when you have things or people in your life that you genuinely believe are supposed to be there. You believe there's a greater purpose in your friendship. But if there can be trust, forgiveness, if you can be authentic and really just be willing to grow. I think if there's a willingness on both persons' part, I think it's worth it to rebuild. But it's always a decision. It's a decision, but it needs to be a decision with both parties. Because if I'm at a place where, like, if I'm willing to try, but you're not, or vice versa, then it becomes almost like a moot point. And sometimes things just need time and space, to be able to but it allows you, but it really just allows you to be able to just regroup and come together. But I've seen friendships really just be able to come back together and thrive.
That's good.
So and I just was able to reflect on that today, just the number of times that I've seen that occur. So.
Yeah, that's good. And I love what you said about the fact that, that there has to be that forgiveness, and there has to be that, and you said this earlier, just even a breaking of pride, just to bring the walls down. And I think a key element that you mentioned as well is just time, and being, I've been on both sides of the coins where I've had to wait to have someone decide, yes, I want to rebuild, and I've had to decide I want to rebuild. Right. And so I just think that it's important, that, let's say that your friendship, if you're listening and you have had a friendship that you were invested in and you guys were friends for years and the friendship fell apart, for you to reach out to that person and to say, listen, I want to talk about it, or, can we go for coffee, and be okay with that person, saying, well, I'm not ready, that's okay, and if you, and if that person, and if you're the one, who's on the end of the person calling, just even allowing that person, drop those walls, don't pick up the phone with attitude, when you see, it's her calling, like, what's she calling me for? No, you know what I mean? Like real recognize that this may be something, and sometimes, even in our attitude and our anger, it really is just a cover up for hurt, and sometimes, and, some relationships, yes, they can be rebuilt, and some of them, maybe they can't. But I think it's even important that you have a conversation to say, listen, this hurt me, or this is why I was feeling this way. Or even when you take that self-inventory to say, you know what, it wasn't her, breaking that pride down to call that person and say, listen, it ain't have nothing to do with you. I was resentful because, I was sick of you telling me, throwing shade all the time, that I ain't come to your daughter party. So I ain't want to come no more. You know what I mean?
Back to the party? No.
But, just breaking that down, to just do that, like you said, that self-check to say, okay, this is what was going on with me, and I think, and one of our questions that you've kind of already gotten to is, deciding which ones are worth fighting for are the ones that, like you said, you have that investment. You love that person. Y'all used to be boom, coon, complete each other's sentences, you know, show up at the party in the same colors, because that's just the vibe that you had. You know what I mean? That's the kind of flow that you had. And I'm telling you, those relationships are very rare, you know? So when you have them and they break, they're devastating, but they can be rebuilt. But you got to make that, like you said, that decision and that choice. And I think, you know, I loved what you said about, you know, their purpose in your life, you know? And I've heard this say that some people, I'm probably gonna say it wrong, but some people are in for a reason, a season
or a lifetime.
Or a lifetime, you know? And I know you are one of my lifetime friends. And, you know, but I've had some reason friends and I've had some seasoned friends. And so, you know, even understanding where people are, you know, in your life and saying, you know what, this is a lifetime friend. This is someone who's supposed to walk along the journey with me. You know, she knows my death wishes, which I don't appreciate how, you know, what she plans on doing with my ashes, but yeah, I'm gonna tell you. So I said I wanted to be cremated. And I said, listen, Shantae, when I die, you're gonna cremate me. And I want to, you know, I love the water. I love beaches. So I said, you're gonna take me to the beach. This chick says, and see, this could have broke our friendship, but it didn't. This chick said, hey, I can just dump you down the toilet. You'll eventually get out there.
It'll end up there anyway, right? Path of least resistance. See, I gotta walk all the way to the beach and be, oh goodness. I thought it was funny. So
it was hilarious. So, but of course, she's no longer in charge of the funeral arrangements.
Not in charge of the arrangements, nope.
You gotta know everybody's place in your life.
Exactly.
Oh man, so this has just been really, really good. So, you know, I just think that that's so important, you know, that we recognize and understand that there are those places that you are going to grow, you know, and those places, and, you know, just remaining flexible. And if you're starting a friendship, you know, like, and you see this person has the potential to be a lifetime person. So, you know, start those building blocks now, you know, work on your maturity, work on yourself, you know, work on that authenticity, that being transparent, being accountable, you know, those are all building blocks, being honest with that person. You know, those are all building blocks, and those are all places where you can see, you know what, this is a relationship that can last. But you got to start with those foundations. Did you want to add any more of the essential building blocks?
Yes. One thing the one thing I was reminded of is a person I used to work with said this, made this statement. There was a mistake I think that I made in the friendship that I had, and you know, I was worried about it, and you know, just how it was going to pan out. And they say, you know, trust wasn't built in a day, neither should it be destroyed in a day.
Wow.
So sometimes you have to really look at the overall. I mean, we make mistakes all the time, just, you know, different things, different offenses, or what, you know, that we may have between one another. But sometimes we have to really look at the big picture. Just, you know, maybe this person had a bad day, you know, maybe they did something that was appalling or whatever it is, but is it something that, do I need to take that, should that one act define that person if I've known them for the last 15, 20 years? Or do I look at that as just that, as a moment and something we can get through? And just to remember also that we're not perfect. We're all fallible, and we expect people to put up with us, love us through all of our flaws, everything that's wrong with us, but are we willing to do the same for others? And I think so most of the time, the more that we can remember that, you know, but for the grace of God, there go we, it gives us a little more mercy, grace, understanding, kindness, consideration, forgiveness toward other people, when we can just remember how frail we are as humans, and just to be more forbearing, you know, towards one another. And just also, I think just a closing thought, just remembering that just you don't come across lifetime friendships or friendships that are time tested. You don't come across that every day. So we want to think about the value of those types of relationships and not take them for granted and not be so because we're not always blessed with people in our life that we can say we may have a plethora of friends, but we may say, you know what, these 2 or 3 people, if we're blessed to have 2 or 3 in our lifetime that are like genuine, have been there, you know, just really genuine good friends, then that's not something that we want to take for granted. We want to value those things and just be mindful or be careful about just, I don't know, just I guess sometimes just discarding discarding things and people that have added value to our life. Not and of course we're not talking. I mean, of course, when you make the decision to continue a relationship, maybe we're not talking about people with like major character flaws. I mean, though that's maybe something different, or you know, things that may be just major issues. But what's up? You know, a lot of times long friendships, I mean, sometimes are broken down just by just miscommunication, misunderstanding, you know, pride, things of that nature. And we want to just really, I would say just consider thoughtfully before we make certain decisions. And sometimes if we would even just think more before we speak, you know, let me call and tell them what I'm thinking, and let me just, sometimes we're so rash and we're so quick and we're so we're so we're just so fast and quick sometimes just to tell people what we're thinking, what's on our mind, and what we didn't like, and you know, and sometimes we can save a lot of time, a lot of friendship, a whole, you know, just can we just pause a minute and just before I send that angry text, before I do this, before I just jump into action so much, it's like let me just pause, take a step back, breathe, think about the whole situation. And you know what? And I've saved a lot of time and energy and probably some friendships by saying, you know what? I'm going to sleep and I'll deal with it tomorrow. Or just like, maybe I'm just tired and cranky right now. Just pause for a moment. I think if we can just be more thoughtful, be more mindful, and just for a second, sometimes say, you know, I didn't like the way they said that to me, you know, but maybe what were they thinking at that time? What was going on with them? Sometimes just taking a small moment to pause and just to step back can save us lifetimes of drama and lost friendships and just unnecessary breakups and a lot of devastation in our lives if we would just sometimes just slow down, think about it. And like I said, trust wasn't built in a day. So just, you know, think to really take value and appreciate the people in our lives.
That's good. You know, and just to, as my one of my key takeaways as well, it was just you know, just learning to let it go. You know, we call it lig. You know, just lig. You know, sometimes let it go, and that's something that I've had to really, because I am a strong personality and very opinionated, and you know, I'm ready to, hey, I got something to say. Hey, you know. But just, you know, taking that step back when you get that text message or that call and just being, you know, sometimes like, you know what, I'm not even gonna respond, you know, and then just allowing that person the opportunity, because sometimes they'll read their own text and be like, dang, like, why did I say that? You know what I mean? What was I thinking about, you know? Or even just picking up the phone. Hey, listen, you know, you text this, but I don't think that, you know, I don't think you meant it like that. So I just want to clarify, you know what I mean? And I think, you know, and a real good one too is just assume goodwill. You know, when you talk about that trust, then guess what? Trust that friend loves you and is not trying to do something to hurt you. So therefore, if that text came across and it seemed like it got attitude, pick up the phone or just ignore, you know, or like you said, just wait till the morning, pause, think, because you might by the morning, hey, listen, I apologize. You know, I you know, that text shouldn't have come out like that. You know what I mean? And just give that opportunity to just breathe and take that pause, like you said. Like, that's so key. Just take that pause so take that moment so that, you know, you don't ruin a friendship or destroy something or devastate it. And it is so funny, you know, sometimes some incidents that I've looked over in my own life with friendships and I'm like, that wasn't even worth it.
Mm-mm.
or, you know, we'll come back together and be like, what were we fighting about again?
Right. And can't remember and don't know. Absolutely.
So thank you so much for joining me, Shantae. Yay!
Thank you for having me.
Thank
This
you
was
so
fun.
much. This was awesome. And I know a lot of besties are going to get a lot of good things out of this, and those who are developing friendships. And so comment below, time tested for life, and tag your best friend. So time tested for life, tag your best friend, and you're going to be entered to a contest where I am going to cash app $25 to you and to your best friend for you all to go out and treat each other with your $25.
Awesome. I need to win that.
So again, time tested for life, tag your best friend, and you will be entered into the prize. And by tomorrow, 6 p.m., I'm going to let everybody know who won. Love you guys. Thank you for joining us.